So, what's up, everybody? I'm Chris Dailey, founder of the Sports Court, joined here by the president of an MLS expansion side, Austin FC, none other than Andy Loughnane. So, Andy, thank you for joining the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me on, Chris. Great to connect.
Well, yeah, it's great to be talking to you, and especially somebody that's starting a soccer team. It just blows my mind, and with the way the MLS is developing, it's just an honor to be talking to you. So, you got your start.
The pleasure's all mine.
Yeah, well, you got your start within the NHL with the Red Wings and then the Columbus Blue Jackets. So what did those early days, kind of as a youngster, teach you about what is yet to come in your career as a sports executive?
Well, again, thanks for having me on. A lot of key insights. For your audience, yes, I worked for the Detroit Red Wings in the late 1990s, and those were some really good teams. The Red Wings, in fact, won 2 Stanley Cup championships in the late 90s while I was there. So I was lucky enough to be there for a championship period. And I will tell you, through that time in my life, I was able to, what I would call, check off one of the boxes that you really want to accomplish when you're in sports, and that is be a part of a championship team. I think all of us who are part of this industry love being parts of championship teams. So I got fortunate. There were 2 back-to-back Stanley Cup championships. Then I had the opportunity to go launch an NHL team and open up a new arena. So the Columbus Blue Jackets' first ever season was the 2000-2001 season, and I moved to Columbus to help be a part of that team's launch. And those 2 other things that, again, launching a new team, opening a new stadium, those tend to come at the same time. And I think in sports, those are the 3 things that you want to try to accomplish. It's being a part of a championship team, having the opportunity to launch a new team, and of course opening a new arena or stadium. Yeah. And it's not easy to find the opportunity to launch a new team. I guess I've been extremely lucky. This is now the 2nd time that I've had the opportunity to launch a major league team. But my years in the NHL, I guess I had the opportunity to learn a lot about what it's like to be part of an organization that gets built and what it's like to be part of an organization that has a tradition of winning. So those are probably 2 valuable experiences that I still have with me today.
That's cool. And I spoke to a New York Giants executive once in person, actually, and she was part of the 2 Super Bowl winning teams in 2008 and 2012, and I'm a Giants fan, so that's pretty cool. But she got a Super Bowl ring. Did you get a Stanley Cup ring by any chance?
I have 2 of them. That's exactly right. Yes.
That's cool.
I don't wear them every day. That's not my thing. Yeah. But they are neatly tucked away in a drawer. Those are with me and will be with me for all time.
Yeah, that's cool. So between that time though with the Blue Jackets and eventually with the Detroit Pistons, you had a few other jobs outside of sports. But then you come back, you go to the Detroit Pistons. And then you finally get into soccer with the Columbus Crew a bit after. So I'm just really pushing to the future here. But you broke attendance records. You got a new crest, a new name. So you did really a lot for the Columbus Crew. How'd you enjoy that time with them? And what was your position? Like, what do you have to do as the president of the business of operations?
So the job as president of business operations means that you focus on all of the things related to marketing, sales, ticket sales, sponsorship sales, food and beverage service, community relations, public relations. There's a lot that goes into the business side. And back then in Columbus, I had a counterpart. His name's Greg Berhalter. He's the head coach of the U.S. men's national team. So Greg ran soccer, and I ran business, and we were in the office right next to each other, and we divided responsibilities. And so Greg led the soccer operations, and I led the business operations. And from 2014 till 2019, I had the privilege of being president of that team. And then in a very unique transaction, the owner of Columbus Crew at the time, Anthony Precourt, became the owner of the Austin team after a bit of a process. And a process that has never played itself out before. But alongside Anthony, who is the CEO and owner of Austin FC, alongside Anthony, we brought about 15 people with us from Columbus to Austin to launch the MLS team here in Austin. But it's a period of our lives that we'll always remember and always proud of. But that concept in sports of having a head of the business and the head of, in this case, soccer, but whatever the right sport is pretty customary. I'd say there are a handful of teams across Major League Sports where, let's say, the head of the sporting department reports into more of a business person, but I don't find that to be the normal instance. Mm-hmm. And of course, here in Austin, I have a counterpart still. So as the president of the team, I'm responsible for the business operations, and then my soccer counterpart is Claudio Reina. And Claudio, for you or your audience who may not be familiar with his work, is one of the greatest American soccer players of all time, and
New Jersey.
And he's absolutely from Jersey, and he also has a son who's a remarkable player in his own right. Yeah,
Giovanni. I mean, that whole family is just entrenched, because I'm pretty sure his wife played for college soccer, so that whole family is, let's just put it, very good at soccer. And I watched a whole thing about...
That's right.
I just watched a whole thing about Kearney, New Jersey, where Claudio is from. They had 3 players, I think like 3 kids, all growing up, including Claudio, go to, I think it was the 90 or the 94 World Cup all together from one town on the same field. It's like, you never see that really happen, especially in like a small town. It's not a major market like New York or Austin. It's just a small town in New Jersey that happens to be very, very good at soccer.
Yeah, New Jersey's been incredible production grounds for soccer, and Greg Berhalter also from New Jersey.
Yeah. And speaking of Greg, I kind of wanted to transition into that because the Austin FC's inaugural head coach is one of Greg's former assistant coaches. So did Greg kind of give you a word like, hey, hire him, or was, just kind of natural and you chose him? Like, how did that process go?
So certainly Anthony Precourt and I, got a chance to work alongside Josh while Josh was a member of Greg's staff. So we got to know each other, professionally and personally, and over time, you get to understand if somebody has, upside, if maybe they've got risk and downside. And what we all, of course, know is that Josh is an impeccable human being with great amount of character, great leader of men. And we had the chance to see that in person. Oftentimes, so you have to learn that through, or you try to learn that through an interview process, and try to learn that maybe even through the working process after you've hired somebody. But what we would call de-risked the situation by focusing on Josh as a candidate for the role, and we knew what his strengths are. So we knew he was a great human being, and of course we knew he is capable of leading a system that has been a successful system. And so with that, Josh was one of several candidates, but ultimately, a candidate that we were familiar with and one that we had spent years together with, who we knew as a human being and as a professional, and we liked him as a human being and as a professional.
Well, that's big. You want somebody that the guys can trust in the locker room, because once a coach loses control, anything goes, and you see that so many times in England. I watched those Amazon documentaries, and once the players don't buy into the coach's methods, it's just chaos. So you have a good choice there, and you mentioned Anthony Precourt, and you guys kind of start Austin FC together. What's been the biggest challenge? And you've been a part of a team that has been started from the ground up, but now you're the president. You're in a lot bigger of a position. So what's been the biggest challenge in starting a team, especially with COVID going on and having to quarantine and social distance from everybody while making the stadium go and these jerseys and everything?
You hit on probably the hardest parts of all of it. So we have to, under any circumstance, building out a major league team is exceptionally difficult. You have to start with a multi-year plan, and that multi-year plan begins with a couple of key staff hires, and then it begins with breaking ground on a stadium project or an arena project, and then of course it's managing that entire growth process over a multi-year period. Well, then throw in our case, Chris, throw in COVID. And yes, that has complicated matters enormously. But I will say, we have been beyond fortunate. Construction has remained on schedule. So we broke ground on our 20,000-seat stadium. We broke ground in September of 2019. And here we are talking in February of 2021. And I can tell you, we're still on schedule for our project. And that takes a lot of commitment from the construction community, commitment from our ownership to make sure that we stayed on time. And it's been difficult. The other difficult part, you hit on it, is we're not together. So in business, one of the things that we find to be of value is simple word, but it's so meaningful, and that's collaboration. So imagine if you and your colleagues We're seeing each other casually, routinely, whether it's in the hallway or when you're in a break room or kitchenette or even in the parking lot. Just when you have the opportunity to run into somebody just on an unscheduled kind of impromptu casual moment, you're able to generate a deeper relationship. You're able to have layered conversations that you might have missed over an email or a text. You're just able to work things out. You're also able to develop friendships and things that allow business and transactions to move ahead a little faster over time. So when you remove that, it just becomes less collaborative. But I will say there's also things that have been, just as an aside, there's some things that about, operating in this new COVID world that we've had to live in. For example, I found that almost all of our meetings start on time. That wasn't always the case. What I've learned as a species is that if we're in front of our computers and we're starting meetings, we're just more, I guess we're better at starting meetings on time on computers other than, or versus having, meetings be in rooms. But I would say you hit that nail on the head. Starting a staff, building a stadium, not easy during COVID. But we've been fortunate. We've remained on track for both.
Yeah, and you speak of starting a staff, maybe the one that's most seen is those 11 players on the pitch. And you got guys like Nick Limo, he's played for the national team as an outside back. Keaton Perks is his name. Is it Keaton Perks? Or Alex Ring? I'm sorry, I'm thinking of so many NYCFC players at one time off the top of my head. So I'm just trying to. Alex Ring, he's a solid player because I've seen him in person. I went to a few of those games at Yankee Stadium. So you have a lot of solid players there. What was it like finding those players and trying to get the staff that is able to find those players and find the players that best suit not just the team but the city of Austin, because you want players that are going to represent the city of Austin well?
So, and this is when we go back to our sort of the division of responsibilities. The one thing that I'll take credit for is helping Anthony out in making sure that we hired the perfect people to be in position to make our personnel decisions, whether it's roster personnel or coaching personnel, right? So hiring Claudio, hiring Josh, those were some of the things that I guess I had a chance to be involved in. But Claudio and Josh are responsible for roster development, and they should deserve all the credit for building out what has been a very healthy roster start. And it's by no means a completed process. So here we are in February. MLS schedule hasn't been developed yet. So we're not in a position where our roster would be considered complete, but we're getting closer and closer and closer. All I know is that Claudio has set out a mission to be competitive and to be a playoff team in 2021, and I think we're going to be on track for that. Yeah. And we have more announcements that eventually will get made as it relates to players. So we're not done yet. And as it relates to our the character of the men that you talked about, yeah, that's something that I think we've been screening for, maybe more so than most teams customarily would. We want to bring people to Austin who will contribute to the community and be good, decent human beings. And I think that I've all I know is I've heard, and I've even seen a little bit of feedback. We've brought on really good characters. So I'm really happy with the progress that Claudio and Josh, and in their credit, it's their work, not ours.
Yeah. And I was speaking earlier just to kind of go really into a new realm here. I see a lot at school, especially as a kid, more people wearing MLS jerseys than I'd say MLB and NHL jerseys, and MLS is definitely starting to raise its level. Don Garber has done a lot for the league in terms of expansion, because I feel like every second we get Sacramento, and then we get Charlotte, and then we get all of these new teams, and Austin obviously was announced a few years ago. So where do you think MLS is going to be maybe in like 5 years from now when you compare it to the four major sports?
Well, as I like to say, the other four major sports. Yeah. So the trajectory of Major League Soccer is unrivaled. In this country, our growth is moving at a very good pace. And again, I've used this word a couple times during the interview, but we're fortunate. We're in a league that's on the rise. We're on a league that's on collision course with a World Cup that's going to be hosted in North America in 2026. And that is a very good thing for the relevancy of our sport in this country. As you know, soccer is the most popular sport in the world, and it is growing in popularity in North America. And one of the accelerators to that historically has been a World Cup, right? And here we go. We've got a World Cup coming to North America in 2026. And I think you talk about what's the next 5 years look like. The next 5 years look like MLS getting better as a league, bringing in players who are younger, players who are truly, titans in their industry and are selecting between some of the biggest leagues in Europe or the biggest leagues in South America and choosing Major League Soccer over those leagues. And that's happening more and more every single year. Teams are becoming more commercially successful, so selling more sponsorships, having more tickets sold, and again, here we are. We're building up towards this 2026 World Cup, where we know that will be a shot of adrenaline for this sport in this country. So I like the next 5 years, especially as we build towards this crescendo of World Cup 2026.
Yeah, especially, and the fact that last World Cup that was in America, MLS started. And now we're here, and the MLS is just only getting better day by day. And the biggest thing, too, is kind of finding diamonds in the rough. And with the more teams that come into America in any division, to be quite honest, the more players are going to be seen, and the more players can get into the first division. Because it's great with guys just like Tyler Adams from the Red Bulls and these young guys using the MLS almost as a feeder league, so to say, for teams like the top teams in Germany, because Adams scored, I think it was a game-winning goal in the UCL quarterfinals last year, so he's definitely doing good. And as a whole, MLS attendance is also going up, and it helps when you have a nice stadium, because I know Mercedes-Benz is a nice stadium, CenturyLink Field, both of those teams a top 10 in the world in average attendances. So how's the fan reception right now at Austin FC? Because it's obviously tough to tell, as we said with COVID, but how has it been so far?
Well, I think despite everything that's going on in the world, demand for Austin FC tickets has been very high. So we have not played our first game yet at Q2 Stadium. We don't know exactly when that'll be. I think our first game, again, sort of irrespective of when Major League Soccer begins the 2021 season, we'll probably have a couple of games on the road to begin with, and I think our first ever game at our stadium will be in June of 2021. That's my best guess. And we have sold 15,500 season tickets for our 20,000-seat stadium, so that means 75% of our stadium is already committed on a season ticket product. That's really good for MLS, really good. The remaining 5,000 or so seats on a per-match basis will be sold as what we call individual game products or individual match products. So that's people who just buy for one game. Hopefully they'll come back and do more. But we have sold the maximum amount of season tickets that we had set aside. So there's a lot of demand for our limited supply. In fact, Chris, there's so much demand that we're probably going to increase our stadium capacity. We've got the ability to build 1,500 more seats in our stadium. We'll do it in an off-season project, but we've got the ability to add more supply to keep up with the demand. In fact, we've got a paid wait list that's 10,000 plus, and most teams don't have wait lists. Nobody has a paid wait list, and we're in a really good spot. Again, Austin is such a special place. We're the first and only major league team in Austin. Chris, if you think about Nashville is roughly 1.9 million in its metro area population. Austin, close in size, but it's about 2.3 million in the metro population. So Austin's slightly bigger than Nashville. Both are growing cities. Not every city in the United States is growing, but both are growing cities. Austin's the fastest growing large city in the United States. So Austin's a little bit bigger. It's growing a little bit faster. Well, think about the number of major league teams in the market. Nashville they have an NFL team, they have an NHL team, and they now have an MLS team. So they have 3 teams in their market, 3 teams competing for relevancy, competing for revenue, competing for media time, competing for all the things that are important to build your club. And then you look at Austin. Austin, again, slightly bigger, growing slightly faster, and we're fortunate. We're the single major league property in our respective city. In fact, in Major League Soccer, we're the only market that serves as the only major league team in its respective market. So it's a good distinction that we've got.
That's amazing. And I was telling my parents about this, and I said, who's an owner of Austin FC? I said Matthew McGounahey, and they couldn't believe it. So just to kind of wrap up after that, and also I just want to throw in there, I did read this. Austin was when it comes to views, I think they had like the fourth most for the Men's World Cup and then the first for the Women's World Cup in sort of TV views. So that's huge in terms of soccer is already big in Austin, and now there's a team, a professional first division team. So that's great for you guys, and as you said, very fortunate there. But
this is a soccer market. This is so before Austin FC was even an idea. This particular community loves the sport of soccer, and you're right on your data. The World Cup, the 2018 Men's World Cup was the 4th rated market in the United States, and then for the 2019 Women's World Cup, it was the number 1 rated TV market in the States.
Yeah, and so you're working with this Hollywood star. I don't know if he has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but he's definitely. I think he should, but definitely one of the most famous people, probably in all of America, in Matthew McGounahey. What's it like been working with Matthew and starting his team? And can you just describe what he's like in person and, not on the camera and stuff, just kind of as a one-to-one conversation?
So, first of all, he is very involved with the team. So sometimes you learn about these owners who have what are called passive investments. They've invested in the team. They're an owner of the team, but they're not necessarily active. They're more passive. Matthew is very passionate about Austin. He's very passionate about this particular project. He's very passionate about the sport of soccer. And so he is our Minister of Culture. That's his title. Yes, he's an owner, but he has a title for the team. He's Minister of Culture. And he is very active in helping shape the culture of our team, culture of the experience that we're going to build out inside of the stadium. He is helping shape Major League history here in Austin. He's shaping Austin sports history because, again, Austin's the first and only Major League team in this market. And as somebody who loves Austin, Matthew is the perfect person to be part of it. And yeah, of course, he's got a lot of influence, and that's very helpful because he's somebody who can be a great leader, and people will listen to him. And I think for us, we couldn't have gotten any more fortunate to have an owner like Matthew McGounahey.
Yeah,
to answer your question, he's phenomenal. He's great. Yeah. He makes you laugh. He makes you smile. He makes you think. He's very creative. He's very involved, and we're extremely lucky to have him as an owner and as Minister of Culture.
Yeah, well, that's great, and it's always great when they help you, because I always watch Shark Tank, and they're always investing in these companies. I'm like, you have 500 companies. How can you work each day on each one? It's like one day a year is dedicated to this company, so it just blows my mind, but it's great to hear that, and I really just kind of want to wrap this up, and I thank you so much for coming on, and for everybody. I don't know if I'm the only one who can tell, but that's a nice shovel you got back there from when Austin FC was first built, that stadium.
There you go. Q2 Stadium shovel.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you so much for having me as your guest. This was an honor.
Yeah, well, it was an honor to be talking to you, and I love when the interviewees can be energetic and radiant, and certainly that, and I say that after every interview where the person is. I honestly mean that by saying it, so thank you so much for coming on, and for everybody, if you live in Austin, make sure to go check out Austin FC.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thank you so much.